So today, in our final lecture, we're going to be discussing your careers. We're going to be talking about career research and creative thinking. But we'll kick things off starting about your careers, and not really in the sense of what you want to do, but rather we'll focus more on your reason for doing what you want to do. Okay. Yeah, Brianna, careers and dreams. That's what I should really title this session. We're going to be zeroing in and really discovering our purpose if you haven't already discovered it, or maybe even just kind of shining more light on it and focusing in on why, and why we do things and why we enjoy doing them. Also, we all know that balancing work and play can be difficult. I think that I see that a lot in the reflections of my students in the weekly plans where, sometimes it's not easy. And in your discussions, you talk about how, oh, I kind of fell short of my goals for this week, or I completed my goals for play, but not work, or vice versa. So it can be tough, and finding balance really with anything is tough. It could be difficult. So for one, we've got a lot of responsibilities and obligations, right? And then two, there's also a lot of stressors that we encounter. And sometimes depending on the day, sometimes daily life just takes a toll on us and we don't want to do anything but rest, right? Sometimes you just need a rest day. And what I've loved about the weekly plan too, and for some of you who are really kind of, I would say, pretty self aware, you put rest in your push goals because I need to actually push myself to rest because you're knowing what you need. So if the weekly plan is something that you continue to use, which I hope you will, recognize that it doesn't have to be all about these work, play, fit, push. A push goal could be rest. Yeah, sleep is important, Jeremy. Yes, and we will talk about that too. And most of your industries will contribute to some of your stress. So having the ability to manage your actions is really going to be vital here. Um, when we think about stress, stress is really driven largely by our own perceptions. And usually these perceptions involve us thinking that something's unfair or out of our control, or getting in the way getting in the way of us attaining our goals. So it's a lot about perception. So we're also going to be talking today about how to manage our thoughts and actions so that our lives and our careers can be less stressful and they could be more balanced. Then, for the second leg of our lecture, and like I said, I'm going to combine both of them, so we're just going to power through together. We're going to also talk about the creative thinking process so that we can break down those barriers to creativity and ultimately meet success in our creative fields, because that's what we're all looking for, right? We're looking to be successful in our fields. So that's just a little bit of what we're going to be doing today. To start us off, on our journey here, we're going to look inward at ourselves. And, this month we talked about our play history, right? We talked about our past, and maybe even that shines some light on why we currently play the way we play. Or maybe it kind of gave you an aha moment of like, oh, wow, my play in the past has really kind of shaped my path along the way. Our skills, our values, and our other passions also develop along our journey, and those will continue to develop. So, we're going to look at core values today, the golden circle, the ABCDE method, and we're going to review our work, play, fit, push plan that we used all month. Okay, do any of these terms sound familiar to you? Have you been able to dabble with our reading yet? Tobias says, mm-hmm. Or maybe you didn't say it like that, but that's how I heard it. Anyone else? Have you gotten to the reading yet? Yes, yes, indeed. Wonderful. Tonight. Thank you. Yes. So I'm glad. Yes, I'm glad. I'm glad. I hope you're feeling better, Jake. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, there's stuff going around. There is a funk going around. I will say that. I hope you're feeling better. So, first, we're going to talk about core values, and I want you to think about what's important to you for a moment. I want you to really consider what is important to you at your core. Okay, so consider the definition of value when you're thinking about what is most important to you. So, a value can be like a standard of behavior of what, in your opinion, is the most important thing in life. It could be something of worth or usefulness. It could be even a quality that you really value. Yeah, Tobias says trust, honesty. Yeah, these are things to value. Jake says the golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. Yeah, that's something to value as well. Perfect. So, that's what we're talking about here. So when you're thinking, what are your core values? And sometimes it's not always easy to really identify it because it's kind of nebulous, right? So I've got some helpful things for us to consider when you're doing this self-reflection, because I will be asking you to share yours, okay? So start thinking about, like, okay, what do I really value? What are my core values? So here are some things to consider to get you in the mindset of kind of thinking about these things that may be something you never really thought about before, okay? Tanae, I like that. I like that name. So here are some helpful questions. When we're looking at turning points, right? What turning points have you experienced in your life? What events have shaped you? And again, you don't have to answer all of these in the chat box, but these are the questions I'm kind of asking you because I would like for you to share in just a moment what your core values are. So really take a moment, maybe even grab some paper and start jotting down your answers to some of these things. What events have shaped you? What highlights or powerful moments or compliments from others really had an impact on you? So again, turning points and these compliments or highlights, we're looking at, like, what has impacted you, because chances are if it left a lasting impact, then it's something that had an effect on you. It's something that you may value. So that's why I'm asking these. Anger triggers. And this one really helped me because I don't I don't really get angry about a lot of things. I don't It's not really an emotion that is quick to happen for me. So when I thought about, like, what really makes me angry, I really had to think about the things that are going on in the world or maybe even around me that I'm really just not okay with. And if there's things that are coming to your mind, it's probably because you value them. For example, I really value freedom, and I learned that about myself by just how frustrated and angry or even sad that I get when freedom is restricted for me, or if I see someone else whose freedoms are being restricted. That's like an anger trigger for me. So I found that I really value freedom. Um, and another thing to look at, value transmission. So that's more about, like, what do you want to pass on to other people that you care about? Like, what values do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to give back? What do you want to leave behind? That's another way to look at what do you value. For those of you who are parents in the room, or maybe if you have younger siblings, or if your job involves being around people who you have an impact on, like maybe you work as a teacher or just with youth in some way, this value transmission could be a big one for you that could really help you reflect and think, like, oh, these are the things that I want people to remember me by. And even just like needs. What do I feel like I need in order to be happy? Beliefs. What do you believe to be true about life? Do you have any mottos that kind of encapsulate the way that you live? Or are there any quotes that you really like? And what does that say about your values? So I hope that these 6 things have really kind of helped you kind of get in that mindset of thinking in this way. If you check the bonus material reading, the Play Your Brain in Safari Books, there's a values chapter, and it outlines 7 exercises to really help you kind of explore this from a couple different angles. Um, and I find it to be really helpful. Jake says, with me, it has been my passion since childhood that I hold dear. It was to a point where eventually, no matter what, I would get there and never give up. Since a young boy, it has been to entertain. Nice. I still every day feel like a non-paid entertainer. Are you a class clown? Are you one of the Joker personalities of play? He says, full sail, I believe, can help me with this on the financially stable side. My work ethic, my passion, my drive to not give up. Love it. And that's with creative writing for entertainment. And you love to make people laugh. Nice, nice. So these are some of the things. Thank you so much for sharing too. And if anybody else wants to share, please do. Um, because that's what we're looking at here today. What are your top 5 core values? If you had to break it down into 5 different things, what are they going to be? Now, some common core values, just to kind of give you somewhere to go. Respect, freedom, like I mentioned before, choice. Maybe you value choice or independence, autonomy. That could be another one. You could also take the character strength survey from week 2, or maybe if you've already taken it, kind of think back. What were some of your values that you were getting? For me, when I take that test, without a doubt, and I take it often just to kind of see, you know, are things going to change? How am I feeling? Because, sometimes based upon what's going on in your life, your assessment results might change. The same goes for the E3. We're going to have you take the E3 again, right, in this week 4, so that you can kind of compare your results because they change based on how we grow. So for me, it's usually these values are like love, an appreciation of beauty and excellence. So, like for me, I'm very easily blown away by the beauty that I can see in this world. Um, I'm an artist, so maybe that kind of ties in with that too, just being very stimulated visually. Honesty is another one I value, fairness, love of learning. I'm a forever student myself. So, what are your top 5 core values? Go ahead and share. I want to hear them. Put some thought into it and then go ahead and type it in the chat box. Or if you'd like, I'm happy to unmute you and you can share on the microphone too. Just put your hand up. But really think about it. And the reason we are doing this little exercise is because typing them or even verbalizing them it makes them concrete. You know what I mean? Instead of them just kind of floating around and maybe not even ever being considered, it gives them a name and it puts them at the forefront of your mind. No problem, Brianna. Keep on typing. I know that there's other people typing in the chat box too. You could share them one at a time. You could type them all out. You could, if you only have top 3, I'd love to hear those too. Even if you're just a couple, like that's fine. But what are some of the things that you really value? Learning new things every day. Yeah, Jake, I'm with you on that. Shayu says, my top 5, being family oriented. Oh, that's a good one. Tradition, right? And being close with your family. I like it. Good work ethic. You value compassion. You value justice and fairness. And you value respect. I like it. Very good. These are great terms. And, feel free to borrow from Shay You, everyone. If you're like, oh, that's a good one. I think that that's something that I value too. I want to hear it. There's no wrong answers either. I should also share that. I want to hear from just a couple more of you. And I also want you to see what your classmates value so that you can see that we're all different, but there's some underlying themes for them. Jake says the drive to never give up, family comes first, honesty, respect, and the love for people's emotions. Yeah, these are great. Of course they're okay. These are great. So justice and fairness and honesty, they kind of all go hand in hand, right? Compassion and like caring about other people's emotions, that goes hand in hand. Both Shayu and Jake mentioned family. So to you, that family core is really important to you, which is awesome. Tanea says respect, honesty, transparency. Ooh, I love that. Family and individuality. Transparency is huge for me too, Tanea. I think it's so important. And it, again, kind of goes hand in hand with honesty, right? To kind of show your motives, to not be hiding anything, and to be honest. Yes. Respect is kind of across the board with you guys. Awesome. Alicia says, my five, I value my kids more than anything else. Forgiveness, trust, artistic talent, and honesty. Ooh, I love that you threw in forgiveness. How important is forgiveness? So we value honesty and respect, but what if we don't get it? So being able to forgive the people that maybe break our trust. These are great. Thomas says honesty, respect, and being resourceful. Oh, I like that too. They're all so good. How do I pick just five? Tobias says passion, honesty, old fashioned ideals. Nice. Determination and thankfulness for still being alive to be here. Yes, gratitude, right? Thankfulness. I love, love, love it. Old fashioned values goes hand in hand with, the family and tradition being important to you. Honesty, passion. These are great. Thanks so much for sharing, you guys. This is awesome. So now I want to ask you, what are you doing in your life right now that reflects your core values? What is it that you're doing that kind of shows that you're walking the walk of this? So let's look at Tobias just because he's the one right that I see right now. So passion is your number one, or maybe you didn't do them in order, but passion is one of them. So are you doing things in your life that you're passionate about? Thankfulness for still being alive to be here. Are you actively focusing on what you're grateful for? Oh, I love it. He says, raising a responsible young man into this world. Yes. So that kind of goes back to that transmission of values, right? So we're looking at what do we want to leave behind? What do we want to teach our kids? What do we want the next generation to have? Jake says, this full sail journey, the passion for completion and the journey that comes with it. Yes. Love it, love it, love it. So also, I always have most of the time I'll have someone say, I don't think I'm really doing anything that reflects my values. So that's why it's important to do this type of exercise, because if these are things we value, then why wouldn't we want to do more of them, right? So if determination is something that we really value, but then we're not seeing it in ourselves, then maybe we need to up our motivation. Tobias says, I've passed twice in my life. Man! And I'm still here to pursue my dreams. It was not your time, apparently, my friend. It was not your time. You are here to do great things. Tanea says, I'm going to school to get a degree in something that I'm passionate about, and I'm showing my daughter that she can do anything she puts her mind to. Perfect. Yes, yes, yes. So all of this is to look at and to give us some idea of what's important to us, what do we value, and that's what leads us to our why. or our purpose for doing what we want to do. So we want to start with the why. Um, who has listened to this before? Did you review this in CRP? Yes, he is a great speaker. Yes. Tanea says, I'm not going to force her to go to college to get a degree that she doesn't want to get. That's a big one. And sometimes when people are forced to do something, that it's that extrinsic motivation. It's not as good as when it's intrinsic, right? We learned that. So if she doesn't want to do it, but then maybe she wants to go back later, and that's fine too. That's fine. Or maybe she never wants to. You can still be very successful. Although, you know how our world is changing, which I'm sure has motivated a lot of you to get your degrees. A lot of times, there are barriers if we don't have that piece of paper saying that we know what we know, in spite of all of the experience that we might have. So it depends on the field that you're going into. Let's see. I see some great stuff in this chat box. Let me see here. Shayu says, I just listened to this week. He has a great way of speaking and his ideas are awesome. I love these TED Talk videos. Me too. I listened to quite a few of them. Brianna says, the passion to change the world and show the beauty of stories that I created for others. Yes, wonderful. So this is Simon Sinek, and I love his talk about the why. A lot of students struggle with their purpose, and this is why we started looking at our values in the first place. So, if you're struggling with your purpose and what you believe in, the idea of kind of finding your why can be very helpful. And we start this process in CRP, where we're looking at, the golden circle. And if you haven't already seen this video, or if you think you probably need a refresher, check it out. It's in our reading, and it'll really help you get a better understanding of what your why is. And the golden circle is all about the what, the how, and the why, ultimately the why. And what Simon Sinek says is that everyone knows what they do, right? Like, I know, I'm a teacher. Some know how they do it. I teach by kind of sharing my experience and my knowledge, and I do so online, right? Sometimes on campus, but not very many people know why they do it. Now, I've done a lot of looking into my why. So I know that my why and my reason is because I truly believe in that my purpose for being here is to help other people achieve success and to kind of see, maybe even to see the potential that they don't even see in themselves yet. I I can work with students that consistently don't see their abilities that I see clear as day in them. And I like to really work with people and with counseling too, to be there for that aha moment of like, this is what I can do. And for them to finally realize their potential, that to me is like amazing. That's life worth living right there. That's my purpose. So Simon Sinek says that we we don't always know this why, and it's not really the money. It's not for a profit. That's the result or the outcome. And he wants people to start reflecting on why they exist. What's your purpose? To go back to Tobias, what did you not finish? um and it's really inspiring to see when companies are using this too. And we always want to start with the why when we're trying to sell something to someone, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Okay, so that's the golden circle. That's the why statement, not to be confused with the golden rule, which we talked about earlier, right? So now that we've kind of touched on values and you kind of have a better understanding of where you're at, let's all look at our why. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Go back to your core values. What do you do? What's important to you? As the video says, Jake, when I asked, why do you get out of bed in the morning? He said, to feed my cat. I feel ya, because that cat is probably getting loud in the morning, right? Yeah, they wake us up. Those pets wake us up. But what is the real reason? I probably shouldn't say why you get out of bed in the morning. Why are you pursuing your passion? What is it that you think you'll get out of it? What's your why? Um, what's your why? What's your purpose? Um, and that's really what we want to look at today. Oops, I went ahead. So we want to start with the why. So what is it that you're here for? I want to hear. I kind of shared mine. So I really think I'm here to help people. Every personality inventory and every assessment that I have taken in my own studies and in my career has put me in the helper, counselor role. Counseling and teaching and educating and support. That is my why. That is my purpose. And I like to help other people achieve greatness. To me, that is my why. So Jake says his passion is he had to be funny, to entertain, to show a purpose of love of entertainment, the passion Jake has. Wow, that's what you want other people to see. Yeah, I like that. I know a few of you mentioned your kids, so that's going to probably play into your why statement too. Um, Jake says, I'm hoping to get to a point where I can give people happy places away from their bad places of everyday life. Awesome. And doesn't music do that? And doesn't film do that? And don't creative stories that we write, doesn't that do that for people? Yeah. Tanea says, my why is to change the world one smile at a time so that everyone, including my family, can find the light where the world is bleak. To tell creative stories and entertainment is the most touching media. Love it. Tobias says, I want to share the stories that I've written for years in a video game environment. Yeah, just to bring the joy that I have to others. I'm seeing a theme of joy and wanting to give that back to the world. I'm definitely seeing that. Um, and that is what's so cool about the fields that you're all going into. You have a way of touching people that can really impact their lives and bring them joy. I mean, that's a pretty good why if you ask me. Yeah, we do need more happiness. We absolutely do. So, now that you know your why, you have to think about, well, how am I going to do that? And I'm sure that attending Full Sail is one part of the how. Brianna says, I gain happiness and joy from writing and sharing my stories to others. I want to make people think in deeper meanings and shatter cliches and stereotypes and wow people with my creations. So cool. So, so cool. So we want to meet our why by looking at the how. How are we going to do it? By being the best that we can be in our fields. That's why we're getting mastery, right? By going to school, getting the degree, learning. Tanea says, I have a hero complex. I know what it feels like to be down all the time, and I want to relieve people of that burden. Yeah, I mean, helping people is just as much for us as it is for them, right? It feels so good to help other people. If you haven't done some of the like some random acts of kindness lately, man, I would say amp it up, because that's one way to feel, that's one way to turn your day around if you're having a bad one. I will say that. So then again, going back to the what is it that I'm going to do? How am I going to do it? And then the why. And in your weekly plan, the push category of your schedule, if you continue to use the weekly plan, I always like to say that because you don't have to. I would love it if you do. But the push category in your schedule could be used to work on your why. It can be used to work on you getting to your purpose. Okay, so if your purpose is to spread joy, then think about some push goals that you can have. Maybe random acts of kindness is part of it. Tobias, you mentioned thankfulness for being here. Maybe some push goals can be, writing a gratitude journal. What are 3 things that I'm really grateful for? And that could help you with your fight too for depression. So these are all tools that we could use. Jake says, I always open doors for people. I find it funny that there's more and more less people that actually show appreciation towards it with the thank you. It almost doesn't feel like a random act of kindness anymore. Yeah, yeah, it can be kind of rough if you're hoping for that response. But just knowing that you did it and that you are being the change that you want to see, I think is very important too. And not letting that kind of dwindle, or not dwindle down, but like make it so that it's not something you want to keep doing, you know? True, true. Okay, so this flows perfectly into my favorite tool. Um, this is one of my favorite tools that you can use if you find yourself in a stressful situation or if you've got a lot of negative thinking going on. Because remember, our stress has a lot to do with how we perceive it. So, it's not always going to be easy as we're working towards our why, right? Sometimes along our journey, we encounter stressful situations. It leads to self defeating thoughts. Maybe you didn't get a great grade on your assignment, and it can be really frustrating. As I mentioned, stress is driven largely by our perceptions, and usually these perceptions involve us thinking that something's out of our control, something is unfair, or something is stopping us from getting where we want to be. And to kind of go hand in hand with being out of our control, that's I feel like fear goes right hand in hand with that. So, the ABCDE model is helpful in those moments when our perceptions are not benefiting us in a positive way. Okay. It allows us to really take that ownership or control um, about our thoughts, our feelings, and our reaction. And it's really an important skill to build when life is throwing you curveballs. Tanea says, this counters my husband's belief about stress. What is your husband's belief about stress? I would love to hear. And then we will go into a description for each letter, and then we'll practice how to use the ABCDE method. Okay. And really, as with anything, the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it, and the more relief you will feel by using it. Okay, so he says stress is caused by caring, so don't. Yeah, I would say that that's kind of an extreme of what this is basically saying. So, stress, if you care so much, um, if you care a lot or you put a lot of weight on certain scenarios that are maybe out of your control, it can stress you out. So to him, he's saying, don't care as much, really, or don't care at all. I would say that caring is good. It's good to care, but sometimes we put too much weight on things that aren't going to matter in the long run, or we don't have control over it, or maybe we're giving it more power than it needs. And hopefully that will kind of be explained a little bit more as we go through this. So yeah, don't give a. Yeah, I hear you, Tanea. I hear you. Shayu says, we've got to be okay with taking a step back when there's nothing we can do at the moment to remedy the situation. Yes. And it is so hard to be okay with that sometimes, Shayu. Yeah. And or to even realize that we need to do it, that we need to take a step back. Perfect. So let's get into this a little bit here. A. So the ABCDE method will start with A, and A stands for adversity. So this is the problem or the situation that we have. Okay. This is the bad event. Okay. This is what happened, maybe. So, as we're talking about this, maybe come up with your own little scenario of what could be a problem that you can use as we go through this and do it in your head. Okay. Let's say, as an example, I got a flat tire on the way to work. That's the problem. That could be an example. B. B is your beliefs about the problem. So these are your automatic thoughts after the bad event happens or after the problem or the situation occurs. What did you automatically think? So let's say, and it's usually negative thoughts, okay? So these are your automatic negative thoughts, which to me, something I always share with my clients, automatic negative thoughts are ants. Okay, ANTS. They are ants. You never have just one ant. You never see one ant really hanging out by himself. They usually come in droves. They're all together. They infest. And then you have to take matters to exterminate them before it gets out of control. The same goes for automatic negative thoughts. Okay. So maybe a belief about, oh, I just got a flat tire on the way to work. Maybe your belief that's negative might be, this always happens to me. Why is something bad always happening to me? Maybe that could be your belief. Okay. C, there are consequences to having this negative belief, this automatic negative thought, and letting them infest your brain. The consequence is what occurred because of the automatic negative thoughts. So, how does your belief influence what you do next? Okay, so my consequence, well, now I'm going to be late to work and my boss is going to get mad at me and he's going to fire me. And these are all the consequences of the negative thought. And I'm stressed out now. And this is what's occurring because of my automatic beliefs. Actually, let me fix that. Thinking, oh, I'm going to be late to work, these are more beliefs. It might not be true, right? Consequences of the negative thought, what occurred because of your automatic belief? Well, now I'm stressed out. And now I'm in a panic that I'm going to lose my job. Okay. D, this is where you challenge the irrational belief or the negative thought, the disputation. And what I like to see in my head when I think about the disputation is almost like a lawyer arguing the other side. Okay. This is where you challenge the irrational belief. So you kind of come back at yourself and you say, well, is it really always happening to you? Like, do you really always get flat tires? I mean, are you sure you're going to be getting fired from your job? I mean, isn't your boss kind of a pretty reasonable guy? And aren't you a great employee? Like, I don't really know that you're going to get fired for having a legitimate excuse. You see what I'm doing there? I'm kind of flipping the script and saying, this negative belief that I automatically had, that I got so stressed out over, you know, maybe it's not, feelings are not facts. So just because you feel like this is so out of control and this is all horrible, that doesn't mean that it's a fact. Okay. So that leads us to E. E is the energization. It's the outcome after you disputed the negative thoughts. Excuse me. I tried not to cough directly in the microphone. I'm sorry. Woo. So E is the outcome. So How did you feel? What are the positive effects of disputing the problem? Can you breathe it out now? Can you let it go? Energization would be like relief or a positive outcome. Jake says, let's see. Every time there's something negative, always try to add silly to calm the situation. It works more times than not. Sometimes I go for a run instead of facing the situation. So maybe clearing your head so that you're, deactivating that stress. And he says the E is usually always positively awesome for you. Nice. So maybe this is something that you use, and this could be something that some of you might already do, and maybe you just never had a name for it. I know that that happens a lot in this class because some of these terms are terms that, we know, right? Like optimism and gratitude and intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. We know about our motivation, and maybe we just didn't know the exact terms to go with it. This is kind of one of those things. So, the ABCDE method, here's that example again. Um, and really, what is happening here is you're taking a problem and you're looking at what are the negative thoughts that I have immediately after something happens? And then what's the consequence of that negative thought? And then I need to turn this around. What is a more factual, realistic way of looking at this? Okay. And my hope is that with practice, you'll begin to naturally apply this model to combat some of your negative thoughts that might creep up, after an event. And if you want to practice one, I'm happy to go over it with you. If you have a scenario that you're like, I wonder how the ABCDE model could be used here, feel free to put it in the chat box. We can go over it together. It doesn't have to be anything too personal, anything you want to do. But I'd love to show another example of how this method works. If nobody has a specific example, then that's fine. We can go ahead and move forward. But the more we practice this method, this tool, I should say, with scenarios that maybe we consider small, then it increases the likelihood that we'll be able to successfully apply it in scenarios that are bigger, like bigger problems down the line. So consider using this model. It's really something that I have seen um, do wonders for people. Okay, Alicia, this is awesome. She says, what about getting a bad grade? All right, so adversity, that would be the adversity. I got an F in psychology of play. Gasp! Okay, this is something that everybody has to deal with. This is a wonderful example. Thank you. So let me ask you guys, adversity, that is the problem. Getting a bad grade. I just got an F. What might be my automatic negative thought about seeing that F on the grade book? Give me what the belief might be. And there is no, any belief that you think might occur from having a negative thought. Tell me. What are the negative thoughts you would have from getting a bad grade? And again, feel free to raise your hand. I can unmute you and we can chat it out instead. Tobias says, I'm such a failure. That could definitely be an automatic negative thought. Okay, so we got one ant. Shayu says, I always get bad grades. I can't do any better. Yes. Alicia, this is going to ruin my GPA. Yes. Yeah, this absolutely. So, or I'm a horrible student. Why did I even go back to school? I can't do this, right? These are all negative thoughts that we might have. Jake, if you want to raise your hand, I can unmute you. Let me see. Okay. All right. Are you there?
Okay, yeah, I'm here. Okay,
Yeah.
what I wanted to say was week one, I was rushing into it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get this done. It was like I think a Wednesday, right? So I'm
Mhm.
like, all right. Or actually, it might have been a Thursday, the day of the initial post
Mhm.
due. And I wasn't even looking at those two words somehow. All of a sudden, I didn't even think of it. My cat walked across my keyboard, and there is a button on my keyboard that actually turns off the wireless connection.
Oh
So
no.
I didn't even realize that till I was at my girlfriend's dad's the next day. And I was like, oh crap. So then I was like rushing so fast that I wasn't even thinking of looking on how to do things properly. And then the next week when the grades came in, I actually did get an F. But I was like nonstop motivating myself, like in a bad but good way. Like I was really hard on myself, but I
Ah,
was like
yeah.
so intent on not like ever doing anything but school until I got things done. So then when I got things done, actually since then I've only gotten like maybe one C and all A's. So
Nice.
it can work both ways, you know.
So your belief in that moment when you saw that F, were you like, "Oh my gosh," were you really upset with yourself?
Yeah, and I was pretty much telling myself no matter what, I will never fail because there's like not an F in pass.
Yeah, yeah. And then, but sometimes we can take that to the extreme too. And then if we tell ourselves, I'm never going to fail, and we get this perfectionist mindset, then when we do fail, it's like, it's such a blow to the ego because,
Yeah,
so really, we also have to be kind to ourselves and be like, I'm human and I have a cat. And my cat
exactly.
interfered. Thank
Uh-huh.
you for raising your hand. I
Oh,
appreciate
no
it.
problem.
All right, yeah, and what Jake shared could happen to anyone, and I'm sure that some of you may have even experienced that, not in this class, maybe in this class, maybe in your previous class, but it's those beliefs. I always get bad grades. I can't believe I'm such a failure. I'm never going to fail again. I can't do any better. Why did I even go back to full sail? School is not for me. Okay, these are perfect. You guys are doing an awesome job. Brianna says, how can this happen? This is going to ruin my path to getting my degree. Yes, these are the negative beliefs that we then have. The consequence of that, we have a lot of stress, right? So tell me, what are the consequences? And some for in this scenario, I would probably reword this. The consequence, I have to share, this is not my slide, so I would edit this a little bit now that I'm looking at it. Because to me, now I'm going to be late to work. That's another belief, right? My boss is going to be mad at me, he's going to fire me. These are all kind of beliefs. When we're talking about consequence here, what is the consequence that you feel when you have these negative beliefs? How do you feel when you tell yourself, this is going to ruin my GPA? How do you feel when you tell yourself, I'm never going to make it? Like, why did I even do this? Yeah, low self esteem, stressed out, depressed. You keep walking in circles. Do not stop to get that grade up for class. So, Jake, that would more so be the dispute. Okay, so you're so good at the ABCDE method. You already went to the more positive side here. Now, the negative consequence that you have is feeling really bad. Okay, we feel stress, we feel depressed, and then what we then have to do is do what Jake has done, right? And we have to dispute it. We have to look at it from less of an emotional side and look at it from a more realistic side. I have a lot of people that get stuck on the disputation part. For them, this is really where they get stuck. And what I always say is, because sometimes, especially if they're dealing with anxiety or depression, they have a really hard time even coming up with an alternative, more positive way of looking at something. So, what I then say to them is, okay, who's the most positive person you know? What would they say? And giving it a different voice almost outside of them, it kind of helps them be able to identify, okay, well, my best friend would probably say this about me. if they heard me saying all of these beliefs that I shouldn't go, I don't know why I went back to school, it's going to ruin my life, and blah, blah, blah. So, what are some disputations that we could then say to ourselves about this grade? Shayu says, there will be another opportunity. You can prepare and do better in the future. Learn from the mistake. Leave the past in the past. Yes, 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 yes. Exactly. Like Jake was saying, he was saying, don't stop. Don't let that one grade get in the way of the rest of your class. Um, you know, what are some other things? And it's so easy, you guys, to get hooked on that one grade for that one assignment that you didn't do well. But I can tell you right now, your employer is not going to pull up the record for every assignment that you got and say, oh, I was going to hire you, but you got this F on this discussion assignment. And that is just not going to work. We have to be more realistic with ourselves. But when we're in the fields, we're like wrapped up with all those ants, it's very hard to see the light. So it's important for us to be disputing these negative thoughts so that we can get the energization, which is the relief and the positive feelings afterwards. Okay? Does anybody else have any questions about the ABCDE method? Tobias says, I honestly experienced that in my community college last year. Doing school here has taken that fear out of me. Good, good. I'm so glad to hear that. Because that fear, how crippling can that be, right? Yeah, one class at a time. And the more you kind of get away from that, the easier it'll be. Shayu says, I feel like this method is an in detail way of explaining the saying, don't cry over spilled milk. It kind of is. It kind of is. But you also have to remember we are using these kind of easy adversities. We're looking at grades, we're thinking about flat tires, right? But what about the big stuff? What about the stuff that's not just spilled milk? And that's why I say using this method on a daily basis, it helps work out that muscle, so that you can flex when it's a big problem. And I will say personally, I use this method regularly. It's not something where I'm like, oh man, I'm having adversity, I should use the ABCDE model. That's not happening. It's more so just something that my brain naturally goes through the steps now. And I hope that everybody can get to that point too, where you naturally are able to dispute those negative thoughts. Um, because when the big problems come, that's what's going to benefit you, right? Perfect. So if there's no more questions, yeah, building up the skill. Absolutely. So with that said, when we think about the work play fit push model, this is also a tool that can be used to reduce our stress. Okay. I mean, some of us may have looked at it as, oh, this is just a schedule, or, oh, this is really hard for me to plan out my week because, I don't really like to work with a schedule. I like to just kind of do things willy-nilly, which is fine. If you notice, you can still kind of do things willy-nilly if you like to. Um, this work play fit push model is really all about achieving your goals. Um, so and my ideal is that you look at it as a way to relieve some of your stress. Get it out of your head so it doesn't have to be something that runs around in your brain all night because I already wrote that down on my weekly plan. And it also can really help you focus on your priorities. And that push category is a way to really help you get that extra edge that you're looking for. Shayu says, I'm too forgetful to do super well without notes and plans. I'm with you. I am with you. I love planners. I love schedules because if I don't write something down, man, it's just not going to happen. It's just not. There's too much going on for me to remember. And I know that some people are really good about just keeping a mental tab. I have too many hats. I'm juggling too many things. If I don't write things down and keep order in some way, I'm going to drop the ball. And as you add more responsibilities to your plate, because life does get more complicated, then you add a family in, you add a significant other in, you add pets into the scenario, you add a career, you add, you know, uh, fun, because you still want to have fun. So it can be stressful. So life happens, yes. And you can't always follow one way of doing things. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, but that's where that being kind to yourself part comes in too, I think. And just recognizing if you didn't meet every single goal on your work, play, fit, push plan, that's fine. What did you do? What what did you accomplish? And if you didn't accomplish it, write it down again. Because if you don't write it down again, maybe it's going to fall out of your head. I don't know. That's what it does for me. So that leads us to, we've talked about stress, we've talked about kind of organizing our life, we've talked about tools to eliminate stress for our career, and then we want to get into our creative thinking. Okay. Jake says, oh, Shayu says, then it can be there to remind instead of preach what you must do. Yes, yes. It's more of a reminder. It's more of a, hey, you at one point wanted to do this. Let's give some weight to that, this was important to you, and maybe it still is. We should look at that. Um, and Jake says, I helped push myself to do things I wouldn't normally do. I added my cat Oreo in for her playtime. Nice. I added my nephew in under push for coloring pictures of him. He's 4. Awesome. Yeah. And kids can be a great way to incorporate more play into your life if you feel like you need that too. Wonderful. All right. We're in the second leg of our lecture. Um, and this one's going to go by, I think, a little bit quicker. And if you do need a break, go ahead and take it. That's fine with me. But we're going to start by discussing the things that really block our flow. So, the tools and concepts from this class, like the weekly plan and the ABCDE method, they kind of assist you in pushing through your blocks. And have any of you, when you were working on things this month, did you run into any creative blocks where you really couldn't get your flow or couldn't be creative? I know that some of my students are working on things like screenplays or new drawings or designs. Did anybody run into any blocks for creativity? You are very lucky, Jake, because there are certainly blocks to creativity. We're going to be calling them out in just a minute. And if it hasn't happened to you this month, I really want you to think, you know, if it didn't happen, then think about, well, what worked then this month to kind of keep my creative thinking up? I'm sorry. Um, and if you haven't run into any creative blocks, um, that's going to be important because you may run into them down the line. Shayu, oh, this is great. He says, I don't have my own quiet space for schoolwork or practice at home, so I get distracted constantly by my pets and my daughter. Lots of creative blocks. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that, Shayu. Don't you worry. So, and I said he, but I don't know if that applies. I do have a friend, Shayu, that might not be pronounced that way. That is a he. It's a he or she. Thanks for clarifying. As soon as I said it, I was like, that might not apply here. Thank you for letting me know. Children, absolutely. Pets are a huge one. Jake talked about that too. Adults can be as well, creative blocks. So, and these creative blocks, I think it's important when they do pop up to realize that they are temporary and there's things that we can do to help against them. So these blocks often lead to anxiety, self doubt, criticism, right? So when you're feeling like you don't have your own quiet space for schoolwork, it can be pretty frustrating, right? So it can just really make you kind of feel in that negative way. So we want to reframe the block as growth. We're trying to push ourselves into better ideas, right? So we want to think about ourselves as having a toolbox. And we're going to, I thought I do. Hold on one second. I think I put this in a different order than I'm used to. Because remember, I said I condensed it. All right, so we're going to talk about the specific blocks in just a moment, like children and all of that. One block is maybe you might have people in your house that operate on a different schedule than you, or maybe you yourself are more of a morning person or more of a night person. So, a way to set yourself up for success is basically to eliminate that block by looking at what is your peak performance time. Does anybody know what their peak performance time is? The work play fit push plan kind of lends itself to the idea of peak performance because you're not really writing the times. You're able to just do them whenever you feel. Okay, let's see. So Jake says at night with the moon. Tanea says sometime in the afternoon. Brianna, I'm a night bird. Night for Tobias. Afternoon or late morning can work with you too, Jake. Okay, so then that might leave you as um, not specific to morning or to night. And then Tanea says, I'm either an owl or a hummingbird. You guys are funny. So you want to really look at these times a day that maybe you're more energetic, maybe you're more focused or productive. And we've got some early birds. It looks like we have mostly night owls here. Most of our night birds, which is pretty typical. Um, a lot of my students are night owls. Um, and really, by paying close attention to when we're the most energetic, that's when we're able to do the challenging tasks. Okay. So, by looking at our peak performance and taking note of this, we can adjust our day to day activities and really take advantage of it. So, for example, I wake up every day at 7:30 whether I want to or not. And that's not even because of my little one anymore, although she had me getting up way earlier than that for quite some time. But that is my internal clock setting. Yes, Shayu, yes. I have just always been a morning person. Even when I want to sleep in on the weekends, my body's like, nope. So I dislike it very much on the weekends. But with that said, I've discovered that I'm more productive in the morning hours than any other time of day. So, what I do is I schedule my time around my peak performance time so that I'm getting more done. I mentioned before that I'm an artist. If I want to be designing something new or starting a new painting or even really just working on any of the work that I'm doing, or maybe coming up with a new assignment. Whenever I have to be creative, I need to schedule that in the morning when I got all my juices flowing, I got my coffee in my veins. Like I am influenced by the sun. I feel like the sun's awake, so I'm awake. And I feel like it's time to be productive. And that's just how I've always felt. But for those of you who are night owls, like Jake, you even mentioned the moon, right? You feel less distracted by everything else because everything else is peaceful, right? So, I really want to think about those things. So, when we're looking at whether we're a morning person or a night person, we want to look at our peak performance time. So, if I really wanted to narrow it down, I would say that I'm best from like 10 a.m. till about noon. That's when I could get the most done. So, what about you? If you're a night owl, what is your peak performance time? What's best for you? So, go ahead and share that in the chat box for my owls, my hummingbirds. Jake says 8 p.m. until about 1 a.m. Okay, so that's a pretty big span. So, you might be able to dabble throughout there. When do you do your homework? Because sometimes we're scheduling our homework at a time when our brains are not functioning, and then we're surprised by the grades that we're getting, right? Tanea says 1 p.m. to 2 a.m. So more of like an afternoon and night person. Shayu says it depends on the day and each new mood for me. There's no real specific time. Yeah, and that's definitely a characteristic too of people. Some people aren't just morning or just night. It takes in account other variables. I think it was Tobias. I think you said it depends on if I work out or sleep. That kind of affects things for you too. Um, Tobias says, I do homework after working out and my family is at work, usually from 9 p.m. until about 12 a.m. Yeah, man, you guys are getting to work right when I'm like vegged out on the couch, unable to do anything but like scroll through my phone. I'm like so done at that time. Too funny. So more like a cat schedule. That's awesome. Jake says it really depends on the day. I love the night, but I find my creativity is peaking at night. But you could do late morning, early morning. Nice. Yes, evening workers unite. Yeah, look at Brianna too, 4 to 12 a.m. So we really need to think if we're going to be doing something for our career where it involves having to be creative, we want to take into account our peak performance time so that we're operating at our best, right? So we really want to organize our day in a way that best suits you so that you can meet those goals that you're outlining in your plan. And it affects our state of flow. Flow is a concept that we learned in this class where we get into the zone, right? So even finding your peak performance time is about looking at when do I hit flow the easiest, right? Like what is the scenario that I can achieve flow super easy? So, and again, this is where we're going to take a little play break here, if you will, because I want to get creative. I want to get creative with you guys. We're going to talk about how to avoid or minimize interruptions, especially during those moments of flow when we're really into what we're doing. So, for the following images, I want you to give me the most creative suggestions that have maybe even some suggestions that have worked for you for how you could avoid or minimize these types of interruptions. Okay, some of these we talked about. Um, Actually, most of these we talked about. So I'm interested to see your most creative suggestions for how we could minimize these types of interruptions. Are you ready? We'll have a little fun. Children, what do we do when we're interrupted by these cute little animal head hat wearing cuties? Feed it. Tobias. Shayu, I like it. She says it's not my peak time, so I cannot. Hey, you pretty much won in the excuse department considering you just used a course concept, so loving it. You can put Rugrats on. You can feed it. You can play with the kids. What else could you do? How do we minimize our interruptions when it's kids? If kids are part of your reality, take some time to play with them. Get them on a project that's nice and distracting for them. Yeah. Get them involved in your play break. Maybe it's time for you to take a play break, and that will help with your creativity too, right? We learned about that. Bring in a bigger kid to watch them. There you go. Hang them up in the closet to help them grow. Oh my goodness. Points for creativity. I'll say that. Okay. We want to be nice to our kids because as much as they're interrupting, what do they want to do? They want to play, right? And now that we know the value of play, we should kind of be using that to help us too. Brianna, tell the kids' parents to take them outside and play with them. Yeah, some of you are not the parents, some of you are. So this might not be something that gets in your way. So that brings us to this one. What about having no private space? Some of us are living with roommates, right? Whether you're at home or at work, maybe you don't have private space. So what could you do instead? What can help you in this scenario? Take the schoolwork outside to a peaceful park? Yeah. Jake loves the park too. This guy seems to like the forest. He is like in the midst of the trees there. Throw beanbags at roomies. That's one way. Work with what you got. Go into a room that's available. It worked for you. How about using headphones? Headphones to block it all out, block out those distractions. Or maybe communicating with your family about when you're working or communicating with your roommates. Hey, I'm going to be working on something. I'm going to need the house quiet. Or if you just can't trust them to be quiet, go to the library. Schedules. Oh, yeah. Yeah, classical music. So do what you can. Either remove yourself from the scenario if you can't make it better, if you can't remove other people, right? Um, or listen to some white noise, classical music, thunderstorms. That's cool. Yeah, I know people who listen to that to sleep. Some rain. So think about how these things can help you if you don't have private space, if this is a creative block for you. This is a huge one. Technology. Technology is a huge creativity block. Unplug the power. Yeah, that's kind of the only way to really like turn the phone off, maybe turn off notifications because we get, beeps, bings, rings, notifications. Yeah, Facebook kind of is. Yeah, I have to go on like a Facebook um like detox every once in a while. Like February, I did Facebook free February, and for the entire month I was like, I'm not going on Facebook because so much of my life was just getting sucked into, scrolling through and commenting and posting, and it's tough. Tobias says, I had to remove the phones from my son and his girlfriend last night at dinner. Yeah, sometimes we have to intervene. Absolutely. Jake, that's awesome. He says I only go there in the morning and then I delete the app. Man, that is self-control. Sometimes we need to do it though. We have to do it. We kind of have to intervene. Turning off those notifications, especially if we're trying to get creative. Our creative thinking, if it's like consistently interrupted, that's not going to help with flow. We talked about that. So these are some things that we should do. Another thing, we should batch our time. So batching our days, and I really love this concept, and some of you might already do it without knowing. I know that I did for some things, and this is from one of the articles in the reading. You group the tasks that you have to do into specific days or amounts of times. Yes, Tobias. So doing similar things together. Um, and it helps you create time for other things, especially time to be creative or to play, right? So we talked about how my peak performance time is in the morning. So this is probably when I want to set aside time to get, specific tasks that require my attention and focus and creativity, so I have the most energy. So that's not the time that I'm going to be wanting to check emails. Because email, I don't really have to have a ton of energy to do that, right? Um, but if I need to be creative in making something, I'm going to want to schedule those in the morning. Um, I feel pretty low energy in the afternoon, which is funny because we're hanging out and it's the afternoon. But usually for me, the energy starts to dwindle around 4, which it kind of works out because our GTTs are done by 4 because I'm kind of good for nothing around that time. Um, but for me, batching tasks is a way that I can really try to minimize interruptions, plan out my day for peak performance, schedule appointments. When I'm seeing clients, I love to see them in the morning. They're getting me at my best. That's also when I like to start grading because I want to be giving feedback when I'm at my best. I want fresh eyes on that screen. If I were to open up people's assignments after 4 p.m., I don't even know that I would be able to read it. I don't even think so, you guys. So, you really want to consider and don't set yourself up for failure. If you know that you're not very good at focusing at 8 in the morning, don't tell yourself that that's when you're going to do your homework. Don't open that brain teaser at like 10 a.m. and be like, all right, this is the only time I can do it. No, we need to take a look at when you have high energy, even if it's midnight, as long as it's not, midnight the day that the assignments due, and take the test then. Yes, planning ahead and knowing your habits makes you more efficient. Absolutely. Um, so, really think about that. Which brings us to this idea of trying something new for 30 days. And this is where we're going to wrap up our session for the day. We're going to wrap up with a video. If you could go to the materials tab and click on the try something new link, it's about 4 minutes maybe. And go ahead and watch that little clip of the TED Talk and let me know when you're done. Okay, so what did you think? You've tried it? I think it's a great idea. I've definitely tried these things as well. Yeah, starting small, changing, making small changes so that it develops into a habit. So really, if you go forward using your plan, I would say look at it as something to try for at least 30 days. Make it a goal to play, include it in your schedule, maybe make it a goal to use the ABCDE method more a few times a day until it becomes natural. Um, yeah, doing it for weight loss, Jake, that's awesome. Start something new, maybe a gratitude journal. I really love that idea. And it's just enough time to make it a habit. And this is a great concept to use in your push category. So we want to focus on small, sustainable changes, right? Um, so when we're looking at, as we wrap up overall, our goal and really, the bigger lesson this month is that you are ideally walking away from the course with ways to incorporate and apply all that play has to offer throughout your personal and your professional lifestyles. So, I hope that you've learned this month that play is more than just throwing a ball. And I hope that you've encompassed a lot of like what play has to offer through your creativity this month. There's a lot of things that can be considered play, and they can bring a healthy balance to how our work and personal lives intertwine. All right, Jake, have a good one. It was great working with you. Um, I hope that you've all been able to see how gamification can really help, and how, no matter how we look at it, our personal lives impact our professional lives. So, why not make lifestyle adjustments so that you can have more fun and so that it can spill into your professional, side as well in your careers? So, I hope that you're able to take everything that we've gone over and use it to your advantage. In closing, I had a really great time with you guys. You've really made go to training a lot of fun, and I thank you for your time that you put into coming and joining. Like I said before, this is our final GTT session, and I wish you all the very best as you move forward in your academic journey. If you have any questions as we wrap up the week, please let your instructors know. And I wish you the very best when you start your new classes on Monday. Um, Again, if anyone has any questions about any of these concepts, please let us know. That's what we're here for. And best wishes. I hate goodbyes, so I just keep saying things back, over and over again. You're so welcome, Jeremy. Thank you guys for your time, and I hope you have a good one. Bye bye.